It's funny the things you miss. The real, small things. For me, it's the specific hum my old gaming PC used to make. It wasn't the clean, efficient whir of a new machine, it was a gritty, hard-working groan, a sound that meant I was home, safe, and in my own little world. I haven't owned a computer in almost 7 years now, and sometimes, in the dead of night, I think I can still hear that hum. It's a phantom limb, a reminder of a life that was surgically, and violently, amputated. This all happened back in the fall of 2017. I was a junior at Northgate University, studying computer science. That probably sounds impressive, but really, it just meant I spent most of my time procrastinating on coding assignments by diving into the weirder corners of the internet. I wasn't some movie-style super hacker who could bring down a government with a few keystrokes. I was just a kid who knew his way around a command line. A kid who was fluent in the language of the web. My kingdom was a cramped, off-campus apartment that always smelled faintly of stale coffee and my roommate's burnt microwave popcorn. The rent was cheap, the carpet was stained, and the walls were paper thin. It was perfect. My throne was a worn-out ergonomic chair in front of 2 mismatched monitors. From there, I could do anything, go anywhere, and like a lot of people who spend too much time online, I developed a kind of intellectual arrogance. I'd seen it all. The scams, the conspiracies, the shock sites. Nothing fazed me. So when I first heard the stories about the Red Room, I rolled my eyes. If you're not familiar, the legend of the Red Room is one of the foundational myths of the dark web. The idea is that there exists, on some hidden, encrypted onion site, a live, interactive broadcast of a person being tortured and, eventually, murdered. The viewers, who pay in cryptocurrency, can supposedly vote on what happens next, or even directly issue commands to the torturer. It's pure, uncut nightmare fuel. It's also, I was convinced, complete nonsense, a ghost story for script kiddies. Think about it logically. The bandwidth required for a stable, high-quality livestream is significant. Doing that anonymously through the Tor network, which is designed to be slow and deliberately bounce your signal around the globe. It's technically improbable. And the security risk? You'd have every 3-letter agency on the planet hunting you down. To me, it was just a creepypasta. An urban legend designed to scare people away from the internet's dark alleys. And I, Leo, was going to be the one to prove it. My investigation, as I grandly called it, started as a side project. A way to kill time between classes. I'd finish a lecture on data structures, come back to my room, crack open an energy drink, and descend into the digital underworld. The dark web isn't some secret, red-tinted version of Google. It's a chaotic, broken, and mostly boring mess of dead links, scam sites, and forums filled with paranoid ramblings. I spent weeks sifting through this garbage. I found dozens of so-called red rooms. They were all fakes. Some were just looped videos of old gore clips, designed to infect your computer with malware the second you clicked. Others were elaborate scams demanding Bitcoin for access to a show that never happened. I documented every fake, every dead end, on a private blog I was keeping. I felt like a digital myth buster, smugly exposing the fiction. This is the point in the story where, if this were a movie, the music would get a little ominous. But in real life, horror doesn't announce itself. It creeps in through the cracks of the mundane. The first red flag, as they say, was so small I didn't even register it as a flag. I was about 3 weeks into my search. It was late, maybe 2 a.m. The only light in the room was the glow of my monitors. I was scrolling through a particularly dense Russian hacking forum, letting the auto-translate feature do its garbled work, when my mouse cursor, which was hovering in the middle of the screen, twitched. It just jumped, a single, sharp movement to the left and then back. I blinked. I probably needed sleep. I grabbed the mouse, shook it, and figured the cheap optical sensor had just picked up a piece of dust on my mousepad. I wiped the pad clean with the sleeve of my hoodie and didn't think about it again. That was the first time. A few days later, the second flag appeared. I was wearing my headphones, listening to a lo-fi study playlist while trying to debug a piece of code that refused to compile. And in the space between 2 songs, in that brief moment of near silence, I heard it, a click, It wasn't the sound of the track changing. It was a dry, sharp, organic sound, like someone snapping their fingers right next to my ear. But it was in my headphones. I ripped them off my head. My room was silent, save for the ever-present hum of the PC. My roommate, Chad, was out for the night. I was completely alone. I sat there for a full minute, my heart doing a little tap dance against my ribs. I put the headphones back on, replayed the last 30 seconds of the song. Nothing, no click. I told myself it was an audio artifact, a glitch in the stream. It had to be, but the explanation felt thin. Even to me, it was the difference between a pixelated image and seeing something out of the corner of your eye. One is a technical error. The other feels personal. The events started to get closer together after that, a calculated escalation that I was still desperately trying to frame as coincidence. One morning, I woke up and the files on my desktop had been moved. They were usually a chaotic mess, but now they were arranged in a perfect, tight spiral. I remember staring at it, my mind racing. A virus? A remote access Trojan, rat. I spent the entire day running every antivirus and anti-malware scan I could find. My system came up completely clean. Chad, my roommate, was a communications major who thought a firewall was a type of brick. He couldn't have done it. I eventually convinced myself I must have done it myself while I was half asleep. Cleaning up my desktop, and just forgot. The human mind is an incredible thing. It will build an entire house of lies just to avoid looking at the monster standing on the front lawn. The real turning point, the moment my carefully constructed house of lies began to tremble, was the webcam. I had a standard Logitech webcam perched on top of my main monitor. Like most people, I barely ever used it. One night, while I was deep in some encrypted chat relay, trying to chase down a lead, its little blue indicator light flashed. It was on for less than a second. A flicker, but in the pitch-black room, it might as well have been a flashbang grenade. That was it. That was the line. A mouse twitching is a glitch. A sound is an artifact. Files moving is a brain fart. But a webcam light turning on, even for a second, is a direct violation. It means someone is looking. Someone is on the other side of the glass, peering into my room, into my life. I didn't scream. I didn't jump up. I just froze, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. My blood went cold. Every horror story I'd ever read about hackers taking over webcams flooded my brain. I felt naked, exposed in my own room. The hum of the PC suddenly sounded menacing. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed deeper. I slowly, deliberately, unplugged the webcam from its USB port. Then, for good measure, I took a piece of black electrical tape from my desk drawer and slapped it over the lens. I should have stopped then. Any sane person would have stopped. They would have formatted their hard drive, changed all their passwords, maybe even thrown the whole damn computer in a dumpster. But I wasn't sane anymore. I was obsessed, and I was angry. Whatever this was, it wasn't a ghost. It was a person, a skilled hacker who was toying with me. They were trying to scare me away from the Red Room legend because they knew I was getting close. That's what I told myself. My pride was hurt. This person thought they could intimidate me. Leo. In my own digital backyard. No chance. My search became manic. I stopped going to most of my classes. I barely ate. I lived on energy drinks and vending machine snacks. My world shrank to the size of my monitors. The little glitches continued, but I started to see them as taunts from my invisible adversary. A new text file on my desktop named icu.txt. Completely empty when I opened it. The sound of faint, distorted laughter in my headphones that would vanish when I tried to record it. They were goading me, daring me to keep looking. And I was. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday night. Or maybe a Wednesday. The days had started to blur together. I was on the verge of giving up, scrolling through one of the first forums I had checked weeks ago. It was a post from over a year prior. A simple question. Is the Red Room real? Followed by a long thread of people calling the poster an idiot. I had read it before, but this time, something was different. At the very bottom of the page, below the last comment, there was a new line. It wasn't a comment, it was just a string of text. VGYGSM9OBIBHB3R0ASB3XMGYSBYYXQU. It hadn't been there before. I was sure of it. I copied the string. It looked like base 64 encoding, a common way to obfuscate text. I pasted it into a decoder. The output was a sentence. So John Gotti was a rat. It was a line from the movie Gotti. A weird, random quote. But then I saw it. The initials. JGR. John Gotti. Rat. My initials were LGR. Leo Grant Rogers. This was for me. It was a message. But what did it mean? I stared at it for what felt like an hour. Anagram? Cipher? Then, my eyes drifted back to the original base 64 string. VGYGSM9OBIBHB3R0ASB3XMGYSBYYXQU. I started looking at the letters themselves, not what they decoded to. And there it was, hidden in plain sight, near the end of the string. The letters YXMG. YAS. Yas. It was an inside joke. A stupid one. Yas was a word a friend of mine, Chloe, used all the time. Chloe. She was in my advanced algorithms class. Smart, funny, with a sarcastic streak I found incredibly charming. We weren't close friends, more like friendly acquaintances who'd occasionally study together or complain about the professor. We'd just been messaging earlier that day about an upcoming midterm. My mind started to connect dots, drawing lines where none should exist. JGR was a hint at my initials. Yas was a hint at Chloe. This wasn't just a random hacker. This was someone who knew me. Someone who knew who I talked to. The feeling of being watched intensified, becoming a suffocating physical pressure. My hands were shaking as I went back to the forum. The string of text was gone. It had been scrubbed. It was a breadcrumb, meant only for me, and I had found it. The fear was still there, a cold knot in my stomach, but it was overshadowed by a surge of adrenaline. I was at the finish line. I knew it. I went back to my private blog. The one where I was documenting my investigation. I hadn't updated it in days. As the page loaded, I saw a new entry. One I hadn't written. It was just a single, non-clickable link, a onion address. It was long and nonsensical. A random jumble of letters and numbers. This was it, the invitation. My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard I could feel it in my throat. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to close the laptop. To get up and walk outside into the fresh air. To call someone, anyone, but the arrogant, obsessive part of me, the part that had been taunted and toyed with for weeks, was in control. I had to see it through. I had to know what was behind the curtain. I copied the address. I opened my Tor browser, the software that lets you access the dark web. My fingers hesitated over the paste command. This was the final step. I took a deep breath, the air tasting thin and metallic. I pasted the link and hit enter. The page loaded instantly. There was no fancy graphics, no loading bar, just a stark, blood-red background, and in the center, in a simple, black, sans serif font, were 5 words and a question mark. Do you want to participate? Below the text were 2 buttons, also in simple black boxes. Yes, and no. I stared at it. All this, for this? It felt anticlimactic. It had to be the final layer of the prank. Clicking yes would probably download a virus or redirect me to a rickroll. It was the last gotcha. I almost laughed. After all the psychological games, this was their big reveal? A simple pop-up? My pride, my stupid, fatal pride, made the decision for me. I wasn't going to be scared off by a pop-up window. I'd come this far. I had to see the punchline. I moved my trembling cursor over the yes button. I clicked it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the red page vanished and was replaced by a black screen with a buffering symbol in the center. A video stream was trying to load. My connection through Tor was slow, and the video was choppy, freezing every few seconds, but the image slowly started to resolve. It was a room, a bedroom. The lighting was dim, coming from a computer monitor that was just out of frame. I could see a poster on the wall, a vintage one for the movie Blade Runner. I could see a pile of clothes slung over a chair. I could see a piece of black electrical tape stuck crookedly over the lens of the camera filming the scene. My blood turned to ice. That was my poster. That was my chair. That was my laundry. I was looking at a live feed of my own room. The camera wasn't my webcam. The angle was slightly off. Higher and to the left. As if it were mounted on the wall near the ceiling. A camera I never knew existed. I physically recoiled from my screen, knocking my chair backward. My breathing stopped. My mind was a perfect white void of terror. I was staring at my own room. But I was also in my room. The temporal paradox of it was enough to make me feel like I was losing my mind. Then, the stream stuttered and the frame updated. And I saw the chair in the center of the room. My desk chair. And someone was sitting in it. They were tied to it. Their hands were bound behind them. And their head was covered by a black sackcloth hood. They were wearing a Northgate University hoodie. One I recognized. My eyes darted to a small chat window that had opened on the right side of the screen. It was a simple, unformatted text feed. The messages scrolled by. Cold and impersonal. Less than user underscore 781 greater than increase voltage. Less than user underscore 429 greater than no. Use the pliers first. Less than moderator greater than standby for next participant. Less than user underscore 113 greater than let's see their face. My stomach heaved. This was real. This wasn't a prank. This was happening. It was a red room. And it was in my apartment. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was paralyzed. My eyes were glued to the screen, to the hooded figure tied to my chair. Then, a new message appeared in the chat window. This one highlighted in red. Less than system greater than participant underscore 801 has joined. You have control. Less than system greater than please enter your command. Below it, a blinking cursor appeared. Underscore. I stared at the screen. My mind unable to process what I was seeing. Participant underscore 801. That was me. I hadn't joined as a viewer. The question wasn't, do you want to watch? It was, do you want to participate? I wasn't a spectator. I was the next person in line to issue a command. 2. To hurt this person. A cold dread, deeper and more profound than any fear I had ever felt, washed over me. Who was this person? The chat window answered before I could even finish the thought. Less than moderator greater than participant underscore 801. Previous user requested reveal. Comply. Less than moderator greater than enter command to remove hood. The cursor blinked at me. Waiting. It was a test. I had to give a command. My fingers, acting of their own accord, moved to the keyboard. I didn't know what to type. Help? Stop? I typed the first thing that came to my mind. Who is this? I hit enter. The response was immediate. Less than system greater than invalid command. You are in control. Comply with previous request. Less than moderator greater than remove the hood. Participant underscore 801. My gaze drifted from the chat to the video feed. A figure, dressed entirely in black tactical pants, black combat boots, black long-sleeved shirt and black gloves, stepped into the frame. They had no face, just a smooth, black ballistic mask. The operator. They stood behind the chair, waiting for my command. My mind was screaming. This couldn't be happening. It was a dream, a hallucination brought on by sleep deprivation and caffeine. But the worn keys under my fingertips felt real. The cold sweat trickling down my back felt real. The chat window flashed again. More insistent this time. Less than moderator greater than final warning. Participant underscore 801. Comply or your session will be terminated and your participation fee forfeited. Participation fee? I hadn't paid anything. And then the most horrifying thought I've ever had slid into my brain. The fee wasn't money. The glitches, the webcam, the strange messages. That was the price of admission. They didn't just let people watch. They vetted them. They tested them. They made sure they were the kind of person who, when faced with the impossible, would keep pushing forward. They had found their perfect candidate in me. My hands shook so badly I could barely type. I had to see. I had to know. With a sense of dread that felt like I was signing my own death warrant. I typed the command. Remove hood. I hit enter. On the screen, the operator moved with a chilling efficiency. They reached down and, in one smooth motion, pulled the black sackcloth from the victim's head. The head slumped forward, long brown hair falling to hide the face. But I didn't need to see the face. I knew that hair. I knew that Northgate University hoodie. I had seen it just that afternoon. The operator reached out and pushed the person's head back against the chair. The face was pale, tear-streaked, and utterly terrified. It was Chloe, the girl from my class. The one who said, "Yas." The one I had been messaging just hours before. I don't think a sound has ever left my body like the one that did then. It wasn't a scream. It was a raw, guttural noise of pure animal terror. I scrambled away from the desk, falling over my chair, my head hitting the floor with a sickening thud. The world tilted, the screen with Chloe's terrified face burning itself onto the inside of my eyelids. The chat window was still visible from where I was on the floor. Less than system greater than identity confirmed. Thank you. Participant _801. Less than system greater than you have 60 seconds to enter your first action command. The clock is ticking. Less than system greater than 59. Less than system greater than 58. This was the Red Room. It wasn't just a broadcast. It was a system. They abduct someone you know. Someone from your life. They put them in your space. Your safe space. And then they make you the monster. They make you choose what happens next. The horror wasn't just in watching the violence. The horror was in being handed the knife. 55. 54. My brain finally kicked into gear. I wasn't thinking. I was just reacting. Primal fear took over. I couldn't save her by typing. I couldn't fight a website. The only thing I could do was destroy the connection. I scrambled to my feet, grabbed my heavy metal desk lamp, and with a roar of desperation, I smashed it into my main monitor. The screen spider webbed with cracks. The image of Chloe's face distorting into a digital nightmare before fizzling into darkness. I didn't stop. I swung again, this time at my other monitor. Then I turned on the PC tower itself, the source of the hum that had always comforted me. I ripped out every cable I could find, power, Ethernet, USB. I grabbed the tower, hoisted it up, and slammed it onto the floor. Plastic splintered, metal bent. The reassuring hum died with a final, pathetic whimper. Silence. My room was dark, lit only by the faint orange glow of the streetlights outside my window. My chest was heaving. My knuckles were bleeding. The silence was absolute. No hum, no chat notifications, no countdown. For a moment, I thought I'd done it. I'd won. Then, from the hallway, just outside my bedroom door, I heard a floorboard creak. They weren't just on the screen. The operator, the person in the black mask, was here. They were in my apartment. The livestream wasn't being broadcast to my computer. It was being broadcast from my home. I didn't wait to hear another sound. I didn't grab my keys, my wallet, or my phone. I ran to my window, tore it open, and scrambled out onto the rusty fire escape. I live on the second floor. I didn't even take the stairs. I just vaulted over the railing and dropped, hitting the pavement below in a painful, sprawling heap. My ankle screamed in protest. But I didn't care. I got to my feet and I ran. I ran without looking back. I ran until my lungs burned and my vision swam with black spots. I didn't stop until I saw the blue and red flashing lights of a police car parked outside a convenience store several blocks away. I burst through the doors, babbling like a madman about a red room and a girl named Chloe and a man in a black mask. The rest is a blur of official procedure and quiet, pitying looks. The police, to their credit, took me seriously at first. They went to my apartment. They found it exactly as I'd left it. My computer smashed to pieces on the floor. My window wide open, but that's all they found. There was no hidden camera. No signs of a struggle. No black sackcloth hood. No Chloe. They called my roommate, Chad, who confirmed I'd been acting erratically for weeks. They even did a welfare check on Chloe. An officer went to her dorm room, and she answered the door herself. Perfectly fine. She was annoyed, confused. She said she'd been studying in the library all night. She hadn't seen me since that afternoon. She had no idea what I was talking about. There was no proof. Nothing. The police report ultimately concluded that I had suffered a stress-induced psychotic episode, brought on by academic pressure and sleep deprivation. They put me on a 72-hour psychiatric hold. My parents had to come get me. I never went back to that apartment. My dad and Chad packed up my things. They said the computer was a total loss. Just a pile of broken electronics. I dropped out of Northgate University the next week. I couldn't face going back. I couldn't face seeing Chloe in class, knowing what I had seen. Was she part of it? Was she a victim who had her memory wiped? Or was the person I saw not her at all, but a digital fake? A deepfake so perfect it fooled me completely? These are the questions that haunt me. I don't have answers. I never will. I moved 1,000 miles away. I work a construction job now. I like it. It's real. My hands get calloused and my body gets tired. There are no pop-ups. No hidden strings of code. But the fear never leaves. It's a low-frequency hum in the back of my mind. Sometimes, when I'm driving at night, I'll see a red traffic light and my heart will seize up. I get spam emails sometimes. On the new, clean account I only use for bills. Most are junk, but every few months, I'll get one. It's from an unreadable address. The subject line is blank, and the body of the email contains nothing but a single, blinking cursor, underscore, waiting for a command. I know what they are. They're reminders. They're telling me that I didn't just stumble upon the red room. You don't just find a thing like that. It finds you. It saw my arrogance, my obsession. It baited the hook and I swallowed it whole. I passed their test, and they're letting me know that just because I smashed my computer, it doesn't mean I'm out of the game. I didn't just watch. I participated, and somewhere out there, on a server in the dark, my session is still active, waiting for me to log back in, waiting for me to answer the question that I now ask myself every single day. What command would I have typed